Mother Earth and embody the spirit of faith in self, community, and the great mystery. And I tell you that because they see stones as the children of the mountains, and so they carry many of those same attributes. But of course, they're smaller, so they carry smaller histories, right? Their histories may go back a long ways, but they don't go back as far as the mountains do. And stones also are perceived to have a spirit. And that gets important because, like the other things we've done in this session, that means you can talk to the stones. We're spirits, they're spirits, we're related to one another, and thus we can communicate. I won't tell you it's simple. But I can give you a couple examples. When I was first given the right to make ceremonial pipes, I had to go to Pipestone River in the Rockies, which was a fair distance from where I was actually living. And I really didn't know what to do. I knew I had to be there, and I was told, just look for the rock that you need for the pipe you're going to make. And listen, because it'll tell you which one it is. And I'm looking at a river full of rocks, right? They're up on the banks, they're in the water, they're all over. And I think one of my attributes is I really have faith in, like the mountains, in the people who were my teachers. And I trusted them. I'd already heard trees before I ever met the Indians. And now, I'm told, go listen to the rocks, listen to the stones. They will tell you which one is the right one. They know. And so I walked along the bank of Pipestone River. And I looked at this stone and that stone. And I have to tell you, I don't know a lot about stones. I mean, I knew how to throw them. That was pretty much the extent of what I knew about rocks. And I certainly didn't know what rocks were soft enough to work with hand tools compared to the rocks that weren't. But I trusted. I trusted the people who'd sent me there. I trusted what their instructions were. And this is about the mountain and the stones, that faith that you know what you're about, or you know you're doing what you need to be doing, even if you have no clue what the devil it is. And I found the stone, you know. I found the stone. Talk maybe isn't the right word, but if there's a spiritual way of saying, here, teach, here, that's what was going on. That stone was in my face somehow. That wasn't a sound. It wasn't jumping up and down. It was in the water. But still, it was clear. And so I know you can talk to stones, and I still do it. I go shopping looking around for stones, for ceremonial objects, and I listen to them, and I look for them, and I tell them what I'm looking for, you know, and I get answers. And so one of the things today I'm going to recommend that we'll go into sacred space, and around the fire are stones. There's also, a fire pit, like you will, where you see rocks of various kinds around the fire to keep it in. There's also rocks all around the terrain there. And I'm going to ask you to find one to have a conversation with. You can call it meditating with it or whatever makes sense to you. I'm just certain there's a stone there that you can find that has something to share with you. And what it might be, I have not a clue. I have no idea what you need or what will be good for you. But the rocks have a long history, and they exist in etheric space just as much as fire does, and we do when we go in. And so I'm going to suggest when we go into etheric space that you meander around the fire, see what calls to you, and then sit with it. And I would like to spend about 15 minutes. Could stretch to 20. It's already 7:20 now. So unless there are any other questions, I will start into relaxing and closing eyes. And when you go into etheric space, just shut your video off. And when you come back out of it, turn it back on. And I'll turn the music on during the exercise, and I'll turn it off when it's time to come back. Okay. Any questions? Anybody? No questions. Okay, let me start the flute, see if I can remember how to do all of this. I go to share screen, and I go to Pandora, and I go to share computer sound, and hit share, and then I go to share again. Where'd it go?
We can see your screen. I can see it.
Yeah. See, I've got one screen up, but
I think it's up top in the green area. Sure where I was going. Started off at a beach, went to into a cave with lights, and ended up through the cave in a meadow in another dimension, and then up on top of a mountain that's interdimensional with interdimensional beings, the earth plane, the spirit beings, the masters, the avatars, galactic forces, and other universes, all simultaneously there. And was given eventually a luminescent white light, like stone, had colors in it depending on what was going on. And it was part of the multidimensional complex of what we are and have, that one can activate and tap into at any time, that the collective is unified here around the earth, that one can access it. And as we stayed there, it went into my hands, it went into my, it was very heavy in my third eye, little bit like painfully so, and then up here, and through my body, strengthening and activating and healing it to another dimensional level, and the earth plane level for the people wherever they are, moving up and shifting, then back into that stone I can activate anytime. And then you kind of brought me back through through the mountains were still there. The father, the mother, the light mother came through, and the father, son, and united in the source and activated the energies in the multi-dimensional planes that are on the mountains and around us, traveling from one dimension to the other, then brought me back down through the cave, through another ceremony, out onto the beach, and back here. It was lovely. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Let's see. The circle, as I see it, goes to Meenakshi next. It's funny. They
Talk to
change
me,
places. Stones and rocks. The crystals are thought to be from Grandmother Moon. They're treated differently and have different energies than the rocks that we normally think of in the stones. And so I didn't say anything about that. I just left it with rocks and stones. But I guess the other question has, did anybody pick it up? I know 2 people said they picked it up, right? 3 people? So, okay. Yeah. Mine were reminding me, I have 2 stones waiting to be made into pipes, and I don't know who they're for. So I've been reluctant to get out the tools and start the work. I've still got one I'm trying to communicate with for my son. So it's a little different. I don't know how well you can see this. Try it this way. It's his totem is a turtle, so however, I'm still working on it. I'm not finished with the stem, and I've got to do a bit more work on it.
Is that onyx? Is that black onyx?
No, it's a little bit harder than soapstone. A lot of the pipes in the north are gray, as opposed to the red from Montana or from Michigan and Colorado. The quarry there's about out of the red stone, but these are the kind of stones you find in Pipestone River, for example. My pipe is gray like this. They take a really nice shine. This one won't be because it's turtle shell and but I still have some work to do on this one. It's been sitting here for a year because I'm not quite sure what to do with the rest of it. But that was one of the things the stones told me to remind me. I had 2 additional ones aside from this. I have a really white stone, and I'm not sure who that's for. And I was reminded of that. And I was reminded that Kim and Tom had both asked for prayers. That was one of the things the stone I picked up said to me was, don't forget Kim and Tom. But I find, I don't know how to even begin to describe communicating with stones. They're slow. I looked up to see what kinds of things other cultures thought about rocks and stones. And one of the interesting ones was to hold a stone or rock to ground yourself, which I had not thought about, but it relates to what Tanis was saying about, we're standing on rocks. We're standing on stone. I think we do take them for granted too often. Most of our foundations now are artificial. We pour concrete, we use concrete blocks, we use bricks, we use my house has got a steel underframing. We don't have stone houses as much. There are still a lot of traditional ones here in North Carolina because there's a lot of beautiful stones. But I think in general, we've neglected the stones. We forget about them and the power they have. And I think the stones themselves require patience. To listen to a stone is much much more demanding for me than to listen to a tree. There's something about the way the trees move, and I don't mean their sound or anything, but there is a motion through the whole thing. Rocks sit there, you know, they are solid in place. My elder used to say, you ever see a mountain run away from the wind? Which is one of the reasons they think that they're a symbol of faith. And said, you know, there isn't a mountain in the world runs away from rain and snow and sleet. They just stand there and soak it up. And they don't complain. They don't gripe. People come with dynamite, blow holes in them. They don't complain. They just are. And they know somehow that they are. And that there isn't anything that can be done for them. You can grind them down to sand, and that memory is still in there, rooted in the stones. Okay, it's 8 o'clock. I'm going to go.
Meenakshi, can we hear from Meenakshi, please?
Sure. Oh, that's
He
right.
hasn't had a chance.
Something.
Yes, that would be appreciated.
Thank you.
Meenakshi?
Well, I know that it's time. I hope nobody minds that I'm going over. It was very interesting for me because I've often had this vision of myself as, I didn't realize it's me, but I realize now it's me, a little boy, sitting by a mountain stream in the shadow of a mountain. And I was picking up stones, and I picked up one. And this time the whole exercise changed, because immediately it started throwing off a very deep indigo but black light, black and blue light. It is strange, you know, and it opened up like a portal, and I realized that, and I started seeing, and I realized that when you go through into the other dimension, it's not you who goes, it's the consciousness. And consciousness went like a spiral and it just reached there. But I also realized that I didn't want to go through. And so then that message of just have faith and trust, and just see where it is you came from. You don't have to go there, but just see it. And then, very similar to what Tavita is saying, there was a lot of activity here, but it was like streams of light, and they formed like a cap, you know? And so that's why I said in the beginning that I'm not ready to share, because there was a lot of very practical ideas and information that started coming to me about a retreat that I wasn't even planning, but that I should be planning for December, January, and maybe later. So it became a very practical kind of an exercise after this very beautiful beginning. It was all actually very beautiful. Thank you so much.
Okay. I did this because way back when we were designing the treatment centers for the Native people, all they knew was the stuff that the white people taught them. You know, you do group therapy and you do this kind of stuff. And you put people there and do talk therapy in a group. And it didn't resonate well with the clients. And I said, why don't you use the tradition? Well, what tradition? I said, oh, what are some of the problems that recovery alcoholics have? I said, well, I mean, I didn't say this. I said, a lot of them don't have any faith in themselves. I said, great, why don't you start a Stone People's group? And that became one of the therapy groups that we used in the treatment center. It's right out of the culture. It said, okay, we're dealing with faith in self, faith in your community, and faith in spirit. And they could spend, time in their small group doing that work until it became less an issue for them, and they were less or more connected, I would guess, to the power of themselves and the power of the Great Spirit and the Great Mystery. But I thought it was fascinating that, you know, you could look at the culture and find things like that to use. One of the things I know as an alcoholic, you know, alcoholics are often great liars. They really are, you know, and they can create stories and excuses out of almost anything, and they sound often very believable. And those folks we put in the tree group, the tree people, the rooted ones, because those are, if you'll recall from one of the ones we did before, those are the spirit of truth and honesty. They would work on those things. So I thought I'd try it out for Zoom because this is really a new medium, and doing ceremonies in the medium is new territory. Certainly for me it is, and I'm enjoying it. But I'm welcome to any feedback people have, because I don't think there's any standards set yet for this, doing this kind of work. Okay, I'm going to leave and go into a third space. But I'm not